Well, I guess the first episode of the season of Weber State Weekly's Men's Hoops Show. We're a member of the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Colby Peterson. On the show today, I've got not his first time on Weber State Weekly, but his first time as a panelist. Joining us is former Weber State forward, Kham Davis. Kham, what's up, man? Good to have you back on Weber State Weekly.
What's up, man? It's great to be back.
Yeah, good to have you. Cam's been doing good things. Moved back to his native Denver, and he's getting his videography business going. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about that, man. But like I said, always good to see Wildcats doing well and talking a little hoops, man. So thanks for taking the time.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Yeah. So tonight's show, we'll talk a little bit about last week's game against Utah Tech. Talk about how that went, and kind of what it means. Then we'll preview this week's games against Cal Baptist on the road, and St. Martin's, a D2 school, coming to Ogden to face the Wildcats in the Purple Palace. And then we'll wrap it up with, look, we're going to bust out Waldo's Magic 8 Ball early this season. Going to put some questions to the 8 Ball, see what the future might hold for this squad. So we'll get into that. But before we do, want to encourage everybody to subscribe to the show, whether that's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all good places to continue to follow Weber State Weekly. And if you would, tell your friends and family members if they're Wildcat fans and they care a lot about Wildcat hoops. Hey, we're talking Wildcat hoops. So tell them about Weber State Weekly. Have us follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And let's grow this thing, man. Let's grow the fan base. So also, you can go to patreon.com/Weber State Weekly if you want to support us. Really appreciate our patrons for doing that. And that's it. So, Kham, let's talk about Utah Tech, man. This one was rough. This one was rough. What I want to say, though, to start out is that I think people, when they think, oh, Utah, the former Dixie State, like these guys, like they're like D2, we shouldn't be losing to them. This is a squad that's much improved. You saw, we'll talk about it in just a second. We saw former Idaho Vandal Tanner Christensen playing for them, and he had an impact. So this is not the same Utah Tech / Dixie State team that folks might remember. Obviously, they played well, and this game was never really in doubt. They controlled most of it. Cam, wanted to maybe get your initial thoughts on the Utah Tech matchup on Saturday night.
Well, the Utah Tech team, like I said, they played well, and they had a couple pieces that showed up for them for absolute sure. And I just feel like they just kind of shot better, especially behind the arc, than we did at times, which is difficult to compete with.
Yeah, and that does feel like the difference, right? That a few more shots fell for them than fell for us. The Wildcats have had a really tough string of shooting thus far in this early season. We know the talent's there. We know guys can hit their shots, but it just hasn't quite clicked yet. But when it comes down to brass tacks, Utah Tech ends up shooting 31% on the night, which is good. It's not like burning down the nets, but if you're shooting 30% from three, that's a good spot. Whereas the Wildcats shooting a little bit below that at 28%, 4 of 14, whereas Tech was 6 of 24, Sorry. They were 6 of 19, sorry. And so it's just, it's just a couple more shots fall, and that's just the way it goes, man. And so I agree with you. It's tough when a team is shooting well. We'll talk about who was shooting well, but I wanted to get your initial thoughts, man.
Yeah. I feel like this year especially is definitely a year that when Dixie State, like you said, they have a couple pieces and they're growing, but this is a year for Wildcats who are kind of learning a lot this year. In my eyes,
Yeah.
right? In my eyes, this is definitely a time where they're growing, finding their own games within a new system, right? Shout out to my guy, a new coaching staff. Say not new coaching staff, my old coach, but they're finding their own way, and it kind of shows at certain times, but it's kind of a learning experience. Like it's all in a process in my brain, how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about this before we started the show. A young team right now, a team that is, like you said, working through it. A lot of guys in the new system, a lot of new faces, but a lot of underclassmen as well. And so guys still getting their feet wet in Division I basketball. And so things have not gone swimmingly thus far. I think also there have been some tough matchups. I mean, playing Washington first right out of the gate, that's tough, right? That's tough.
For a young team, that's extremely tough because your first game, you have a lot of like freshman jitters. Let's put it that way, right? And your first game is against a solidified team, who's already been playing, and that's already rough. and the year in general, and the consistency and the mentality you have to have um, going into basketball in a college career is different. It's next level, and for a bunch of young guys to be approaching that, it's difficult.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the system that we saw on the floor on Saturday night. One thing I noticed, Cam, was that it felt like the offense kind of struggled to score in that first half. They were trying to figure out the defense, trying to poke holes in it and find ways, and they just didn't seem to figure it out. So they only put up 28 points in the first half. So do you think it's a function of guys still, like you said, learning the system, or is Coach Duft, doing something different this year that is making it maybe a little bit tougher for guys to latch onto quite yet?
Well, that's hard to say, right? Because I'm not in the locker room with them, like hearing this new systems. But me knowing Coach Duff, I would assume, that he's, trying to or making adjustments even as they go, right? He'll be the type of coach that, is trying to put them in front of, systems that they can thrive in. I think it's more so them just kind of getting used to the systems and where they can score within the system. Because one thing that I noticed is that, sometimes their assist totals may be low. So they don't really know how to find shots in the system yet for each other. And that's really hard to do, especially as a young team. It's really hard to be successful without, knowing where your shots are going to come from.
Yeah, like you said, assist total was a little bit low. Wildcats had just 9 assists, with 5 of those came from Dylan Jones himself.
Yeah.
So the other 4, just guys sharing the ball. And so it makes sense what you're saying, where it's like guys haven't quite figured out where to find those shots in the system yet. And so they're trying to create. We saw a lot of, ISO one-on-one driving from the top of the key and trying to make a shot happen
Yeah.
because things weren't quite working out the way they hoped. Sometimes that led to some turnovers, right? Where they're going and they're trying to draw the defense in to collapse and then trying to kick it back out. So turnover numbers, I think, were a little bit higher because of that. But what you said makes sense, where guys are trying to find those shots, find those spots, and when they do, those assist numbers will come up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I want to talk a little bit about the turnovers. I mean, 7 in the first half alone. It's not like a crazy number, but it is a little high. 7. And then, did you feel that it was more Tech was playing great defense and making it hard on the Wildcat offense, and so they were causing those turnovers? Or maybe a function of, like we've already talked about, still trying to find it, working through the system, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And so you're not 100% on where you're going to send the ball. You're trying to create on the fly. And so that creates, opportunities for turnovers. Did you feel it was more Tech's defense or just trying to create?
I feel like it's more trying to create. I wouldn't say as much Tech's defense, not to discredit the defense. The defense is probably pretty solid, right? But if you even looked at the stats, like they didn't have a lot of steals or blocks. They had a couple, right? But like
Right.
it was more so just I would say it's more just mistakes on the Wildcat side, right? Just them just kind of not knowing, where to put the ball or try to be too creative at times, or just them being young. It really just a bunch of young mistakes.
Yeah. Because it's a good point. Like, only 2 blocks in this game, 4 steals total. It's not overwhelming. It's just, you know,
Yeah.
just trying to figure it out. So I think that's what makes sense to me. And I think it's probably a drum that we're going to beat over and over again as we go through this non-conference. And once we get into conference play, is that this is a team that's trying to gel. It's a new coach. Yes, of course, Coach Duft has been at Weber State for a long time, but it's now his first season as head coach and doing the things that he wants to do. And so there are going to be some differences, even though he has been a long-time assistant to, former head coach Randy Ray.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to happen. And then in addition, there were a lot of transfers in. We're seeing Junior Ballard, Keith Dinwiddie, Steve Verplanken. The list goes on. Like, these are all new guys coming from various schools, coming together to play. And I think it's a really talented roster. Like, I really do. I look at some of the game that these guys have, and there's some nice players here. It's just, I think it's going to take a little bit more time to gel. And honestly, I don't mind, even if like we suck halfway through conference play. Just so long as we start to click in February and go into March strong. Hey, man.
That's where it counts essentially, especially as a team like this, like we said, like younger guys, or whatever. You kind of grow throughout the season, right? You have to kind of go through these lessons. I don't like to call them losses, I like to call them lessons, right? Because you learn every game you're in, you're learning. You know what I'm saying? Every experience you can get, all the different situations, different play styles. You're constantly learning, right? So what's the goal is to grow enough to where by the time the end of your season happens, or like around that February area, you guys are like, okay, we think we have it now. Like we got it. We have our offense. We have the defense. We understand how players play. It's just a different kind of intensity. So I think that's kind of what we're experiencing right now. It's like kind of the first half kind of, you know, lessons.
Cam, how much of that also is, once conference play gets started, you're going to see teams twice. That's not something you're seeing in the non-conference, right? You're going to see them once and that's it. And so every game is just a new opponent. Whereas conference play, hey, I'm going to see you again. And so you're going to learn little things about them. Like how much of that is a factor as well going into February and March?
Oh man, that's really huge. That's really huge because we really in this conference at least, conference tournament's huge, right? So
Yep.
seeing these teams multiple times is preparation of what kind of shots you'll get against certain teams and what kind of defense you need to play against certain teams, right? So that's a really big thing. And if you have a team who's constantly in a stage of learning, right, by the time the tournament starts, they should be in positions to where they probably understand a little bit more what's going to go on in that game.
Yeah, I mean, totally fair. So another thing I wanted to point out and get your opinion on, Cam. So former Vandal Tanner Christensen had himself a game. He led all scorers with 20 points, was 9 of 13 from the floor. Most of that was in the paint. He really used his size a lot in this game. Didn't blow us away necessarily. He had 8 rebounds, which was a pretty good number. I think that led everybody but Dylan Jones, which Dylan's going to get his rebounds. That's what Dylan does.
Yeah.
So DJ's going to get that double-double. That's what he does. But 8 rebounds, 20 points, a pretty good night for Tanner Christensen, who has now transferred down to Utah Tech. I was going to ask, like, how worried are you about the depth in the front court this year? Because now Alex Chu's there. Like you said, young player, sophomore now. I think battling through some injury. Also, and then the rest of the front court is really young guys, freshmen. There is no Dante Bassett this time around. There's not a guy that you can look to and say, yeah, this guy's got the experience. He can handle it. How do you feel about the front court, and where do you think it's going to be a problem, or is it just going to be a steady process of continuing to learn the position and there might be some bad nights?
This one's a hard one. This one's a hard one because, like I said, it kind of just depends on the players and their growing process and how and where their minds are at during this process. Congratulations to what's the name who got 20 points? I forgot.
Tanner Christensen.
Yep, Tanner. So Tanner's a solid player, right?
Yeah,
Solid
he
player,
is.
but they'll probably see a lot of solid bigs, right? Later on, even in a conference, or even not to discredit him or anything. He had a great game, but if every good big they play against, they're giving up points, it can be troublesome. So it really just depends on, if those young guys are ready to step up and take the chance and believe in themselves. I think that's huge. And it's possible, extremely possible. I see it happen all the time. Right now, Alex is doing as much as he can. He's playing solid. But I think that the bench, having that same energy off the bench is going to be huge.
Yeah, and I would say that like there was energy off the bench in this one. Like if I go back and look, I thought there was like 19 bench points, I think is what it was. 17 for the Wildcats here. Oh wait, no. That's for Tech. Yeah, the Wildcats had 19 bench points out of their, 65. And that's a nice number, I think. Because it's like it's not all just the starters. Guys are coming in, they're competing. A big chunk of that is Zaire Porter continues to do a good job coming off the bench. He contributed 12 of those 19. So Porter off to a good start. It feels like he's healthy, which is nice because when Zaire is healthy, he's a great player. But it feels like last season he was maybe a little bit hampered.
Yeah, no, Z Bucks. I call him Z Bucks, right?
Z Bucks, hey.
Hey, he's a basket man. I'm telling you, when he's like in the right, when he's in his space, man, he's scoring. He's such a smooth player. He's such a smooth player. Such a great addition to a team. It's really come off the bench, right? Having the same kind of offensive damage coming off the bench is huge for any team. And I think he is that right now in a large way, which is dope. Super dope.
Yeah, and it feels like he's the sixth man right now. I mean, because he leads all players off the bench with 20 minutes, and so it feels like Porter is the sixth man right now, and he took advantage. I mean, he shot 50% from the field, missed a couple of threes, but like I feel like his game has evolved a lot because I feel like when Zaire came to us, his assignment was maybe 3-and-D, right? That was his job. He wanted to be that wing defense. That's kind of what he was, and he was going to shoot the ball. Whereas I feel like he's really evolved his game. He's really good at going to the basket now. He's done a lot of work at being able to finish, and that showed. 4 of 8. And he's shooting 4 of 4 from the free throw line. Like that's his points right there. He's not relying on the long ball to make it happen. He's taking care of business and making his shots closer to the basket, and that's something I like to see, man. Because it's like, listen, it's not just a make or miss night. It's like the threes aren't going down, we're losing. It's like, nah, we're gonna get close to the basket and we're gonna give ourselves a chance.
Absolutely. I like especially with him in this game, the efficiency, especially at the rim. He's very efficient at the rim and then making his free throws. Like, that's huge. Free throws in the end of the game is really huge. And if your bench is making free throws, that's also a really big thing. And his left hand's got so much better. His left hand finishing is insane. So I mean, I think the sky's the limit. Honestly, he's like, especially by the end of the season, he'd probably be doing better.
Yeah. I feel like this is the Porter we would have seen maybe at the end of your senior year had he not been injured the following year and just, tried to make it work, because we saw
Absolutely.
some solid growth, in your senior season with that team. And it really looked like Porter was, but then just last year, he was just, it was just tough. He had a lot of shoulder problems. And so it was just, he wasn't able to progress, but now he's back. And it's like, yeah, man, look at him go. It's incredible.
Absolutely. I completely agree with everything you just said.
Yeah. Thing I wanted to ask you about, though, talking about Tech again. So Tech guard Isaiah Pope had 19 on the night. He only averages 9.6, coming into this game. That number's obviously a little bit up now because of his 19. Did you think that, like, it was just like he just cooked, or is there maybe concern that the Wildcats might struggle to guard really good guards? Because it is a guard-driven league, right? Like, that's what the Big Sky is what it usually is. It's a guard-driven league. And so is there maybe worry that the Wildcats might struggle against better guards in the league and give up, points? Because Isaiah Pope only averages 9.6 coming in, has almost 20 on the night, has himself, that's a season high for him. Do Wildcat fans need to be worried about that?
I'm not gonna say worried. I don't think worried is the right word to say that. I mean, like I said, he doesn't average this many points, and he had a phenomenal game, shooting over like 60% from the field. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's unusual for anybody, even if you are a dominant guard in any league. So yeah, like, he had a great night. But to be worried about that, maybe alert, like, maybe, hey, let's get our stuff together. Let's have a talk in the locker room. Hey, like, this guy had a couple buckets. Let's strap down on that. But worry for the whole conference. I fully believe in the Wildcat defense's guards. You know what I'm saying? They're already kind of undersized, but they move. They do move, and they show flashes of really good defense, really great defense. So I don't think it's necessarily something that needs to be worried about. But it needs to be in the brain. Like, it needs to be there. Like, just be cognizant of it and just be working on that to get better.
Yeah. Last question I had for you, man, is 5 non-conference. 2 of those are against Utah State and BYU. Do you think? I mean, we just talked about it a little bit about how, like, even if it drags on into the regular the conference schedule, that the Wildcats still working on gelling, that it's not the end of the world if they don't. But I mean, it has been a kind of, it's been a rough start. Guys are still learning it. What's your take? Do you think that that 5 games is enough to make serious progress, or do you think it's going to take maybe a little bit longer?
That BYU game is gonna be huge, and this is
Yeah,
why.
it is.
Yeah, it's gonna be such a huge game. There's gonna be a lot of things, because BYU always has a very solid team. They have large bigs, right, and pretty solid guards that take care of the ball and get the ball places that they need to get to. And it's gonna be a large test and a time of growing. You know what I'm saying, for the Wildcats, honestly, for my team, my guys, right? I personally think anything's possible. I've seen a bunch of crazy stuff in my career. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to downgrade anything, but I think it's mainly on how they approach it. If they approach the game properly and how it could be a time for them to really grow, because BYU is that experience. They always have very experienced teams, very solid teams that go pretty far, even past February, right? So at times. So, and I'm not really familiar with the record this year, but I think it's a good chance for us to see how much improvement for the defense has been made, and where they're gonna be finding their shots and how they're gonna be finding shots, because BYU has good defense as well. So I'm interested to see what happens. Like, I'm huge on positive energy, so I'm not gonna say anything negative about it, but it'll be a great time for them to learn and grow.
Yeah, it seems like it feels like the take is that continuing to challenge the team and put them in tough situations where they have to play well against stiff is good because then they have to figure it out against tough opponents. There are no days off necessarily. Like the competition just keeps coming. There aren't games where it's like, we got this. That's not happening. And so for them to continue to play against really tough competition is probably good going into the non-conference because right out of the gate, they're going to play Northern Colorado. That's the first. That's the first conference game, which is a game that I will be at, folks. So if you're in Ogden, come say what's up because I'm going to be there. But Northern Colorado, good team. A team that just knocked off Colorado State. Colorado State, a tournament team last year. A good team, and so, or I would say a tournament caliber team. And so I don't know, man. I mean, it's just I guess I like the toughness of the schedule, but we'll just see how they handle it. But I think overall, continually having challenge after challenge after challenge, eventually it's going to click because
it has to.
Yeah, like it will.
My fault. Yeah, my fault. I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. But yeah, I mean, essentially, it has to. Like the more difficulty you face, you honestly you pick up on things in the game, like, oh man, like you have to kind of figure it out because if you love basketball, you love winning, and you want to be, you want to win. Everybody wants to win, right?
Hey.
You don't want to lose. So you will find ways. You will find a way to like do better and to get closer, and so you can actually get a portion of that win. It has to happen.
Yeah. So, final thoughts here. Wildcats fall 77-65 to Utah Tech at home in the Purple Palace. Wildcats sit now 2-6 on the season with the week coming. But it's a process. So we'll just see what happens. It's like Sean Lewis always said, it's all about 1 week in Boise or 3 days in Boise, I think is what he always says. So that's what matters. Cam, final thoughts there? Do you want to share or want to preview this week?
Yeah, no, this game is definitely a learning lesson, and honestly, I feel like personally they could have performed better. I know the guys are good, and this is just one game, so that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, and I think they'd agree. They know that like there's a lot of talent here, and so it's just a matter of putting the pieces together because it's there. I mean, the talent is there, man.
Absolutely.
So moving on, let's talk a little bit about this week's games. We'll start with a tough Cal Baptist team, and then a home game at the Purple Palace against D2 St. Martin. So let's start with Cal Baptist. I was just doing a little scouting because I don't watch Cal Baptist, man. I don't watch WAC basketball, to be honest. I just don't. So I mean, it is on ESPN Plus, and I watch a lot of ESPN Plus, but just I don't know, man. And so I had to go and scout them. Like, what's up with Cal Baptist? So they usually have a quality squad, and it is a quality squad. And so the thing that I noticed, not a terribly potent offense. They're 13th out of 13 in the WAC in scoring offense. So it's like, all right, this is not a team that's going to bury you. But where they make their money is on the defensive end of the ball, especially guarding the three-point line. They do not give up a lot of threes. And so we talked about the struggles with the offense, in the last segment about how guys are still working it out. Now you face another tough defensive challenge in Cal Baptist where you're probably going to be able to keep up with them because their offense is not whiz bang. And so even just an above average defensive showing will keep you close. But Cam, how do you feel that the Wildcats break through on a team like this where they're going to be defensively tough? And so you're going to try and you can't just shoot over the top of them. Like shooting the three is not the thing. That's the thing that they excel at, is shutting that down. So I don't know, man. Like, where do you think the Wildcats find points against Cal Baptist?
I think this would be a huge game for Dill. I think Dill will have an amazing game. Dill thrives in the paint, not point. And the ball just finds him. Obviously, his rebound totals are extravagant. And I think this is a really game where he can thrive. And it's a good game also for Alex and any big man in the game because they'll have a chance to really to get opportunity inside, and maybe playing inside will open up shots a little easier, shot selection from the 3-point line, right? Because they're so good at shutting down threes, you almost want to find the gap inside their defense, and if it's inside, that's where you want to go.
Yeah, they can't do it all, right? If you're going to commit that much to guarding the perimeter, there's going to be vulnerabilities inside, and I agree with you. Dylan Jones thrives in that environment.
Oh, Dylan's going to go crazy. I already know, and we need him to. Because he's a huge part of the team, right? So I think this is a good game for them to kind of kind of battle. This will be a battle, right? Because right now most of our points coming from the paint, which is fine.
It's,
So
I
yeah,
love a high percentage shot.
yeah, absolutely right. Of course. So
Love it.
our strength right now is somebody else's weakness. So we'll take it, right?
Yeah, so take that.
Um, so I think this would be a good opportunity for them to kind of test against a good defense, right? But really find their points in the paint.
Another thing I think that is going to be key to this is, like we said, Dylan Jones is going to have a good game. He should be able to, have a pretty good day in the paint. Dylan always gets his rebounds. He does a great job of that.
Mhm.
But I think maybe an underrated part of Dylan's game, and we talked about it in the last segment, 5 assists in the last game. Dylan is very good at finding his teammates when, the defense is committed to him. He's more than willing to pass the ball for easy buckets. And so I think that if there's good off-ball movement by the Wildcat offense, and if the defense is committing to maybe to try and stop Dylan Jones after he's already put 15 up on them, it's going to create a lot of opportunities for backdoor cuts, for guys to move off ball. And those are even easier shots because they will be far less contested. And so I think, like I said, an underrated part of Dylan's game is his ability to facilitate and draw the defense. But if guys can move off ball effectively, it's going to be nice.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and like Dill's a playmaker, man. If you ask like what's Dill's play style, is playmaker. Whatever you need from him to do, he's gonna go find a way to do it, right? And passing, he's a good passer, right? So he's capable of having a triple double if he wanted to. Let's put it that way,
Yeah. No,
right?
very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's I think that'll be a large strength for them is when he starts going into paint and getting his buckets is finding his teammates and they'll have opportunities like you said the back cut, and maybe even a couple of the threes from mistakes because a lot of times when people are killing you in your weakness, you try to compensate and you're giving up things that you might be better at, right? As any team tries to adjust during the game. So who's to tell where it goes from there?
Yeah. Another stat that might play a role is Cal Baptist is dead last in the conference in the WAC in free throw percentage. They are a bad free throw shooting team. The Wildcats are a good free throw shooting team. They talked about in the broadcast last weekend that the Wildcats were one of the best free throw shooting teams in the country. And so as the game gets late and, maybe you're putting guys on the line, how much of a factor do you think it is? Does it only matter if it's close, or does their inability to put the ball through the hoop on free throws put them in a bind? What do you think?
Oh, well, free throws are huge, right? And I think if I look correctly, the Wildcats have been shooting like 80% most of their games as a team.
Yeah,
That's outrageous, right? That's
great.
amazing,
It's great.
amazing numbers. And for a team whose weakness may be the paint, right? You have a lot of opportunities to get to the free throw line. So that kind of adds up over a period of a game. And if the other team's not making free throws and you're making free throws while being in position to get more free throws, that can really be a huge difference, right? It doesn't just mean like the end of the game. And the game, of course, it's a big difference, but during a stretch of a game, oh man, you can easily get 10 or 20 extra points from just free throws if the other team's not making them.
Yeah. If they're
So
late on rotations and they've got a foul to try and keep you, and maybe some and one situations, you just go to the line
what?
for two,
And you're making them, and that's the best worst part
and you're
about it is that
making
you're
them.
making them. So those are free points, and they're giving them to you because they're trying to avoid threes. So that can get out of control if we take advantage of it.
Yeah. I think another factor too is, since it is a team that does like to contest the three and make sure a lot of times teams that contest the three pretty heavily, they make mistakes. And
Mhm.
when they make those mistakes, that's 3 free throws instead of just 2. So, hey man, we'll take those as well. But I
Yeah.
just wondered about the free throws because it's like I think it's going to play a factor, especially if the game is tight late.
hmm Absolutely. If the game is tight late, you have more opportunities to get buckets because they probably will be missing. So
Yeah.
that's an advantage.
Last thing on Cal Baptist is they do have a common opponent with Weber State, the University of Washington. So the Lancers beat the Huskies 73-64 a couple of weeks ago in Seattle. Wildcats did not fare so well first game of the season. What do you make of that comparison, man? Like, does it? It's tough because hoops. It was the first game of the season with this team. That can mean something. Um, Washington maybe had an off night. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's just like a matchup thing. Basketball I feel is very much like football, where matchups matter. They matter an awful lot.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. What do you make of the common opponent and them, beating the Huskies no, I'm not going to say handily, but, comfortably, whereas the Wildcats had a rougher go?
Well, I mean, when you look at the stats right now, I guess I'm now looking at the stats, right? You can tell that I think their 3-point defense played a large part in that game, right? If one team is shooting 16 3-pointers and only making 25% of them, right, which is under like a 30% comfortable, and 30% is even low. I would say 33 is even better, maybe 33 or 35, right? So them shooting 10% lower than like a 35 is a large contributor to a loss. You're not shooting well while they're shooting 40% from three, right. So
and that hurts, right? That hurts bad.
Oh, it hurts terribly. So it could be a matchup thing. It could just be those more prepared or suited to play against a Washington type team, or maybe Washington was just missing. Who knows, right? It's one of those things where it's like it's really hard to tell because any night can be anybody's game, right? Adding to the fact that the Wildcats' first game with so many freshmen and so many young players and so many new things and systems, their first game was Washington. So, that's there's so many things that play into why one team may have thrived and another team may have not thrived. And I think it mainly has to do with the circumstances around, the game itself and the advantages and disadvantages that each team has against the same opponent.
Yeah, it felt like so Washington shot 31% against the Wildcats in that game. They went 6 of 19, but it felt like the difference in that game was second chance points. So just crashing the offensive boards. They had 10 offensive rebounds in that game. So that hurts, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have to see how the Wildcats deal with, the challenge that is Cal Baptist, because that was where they struggled against Washington. Cal Baptist handled it well, and so we'll see what that means. But wanted to get your take on the common opponent and kind of what it might mean.
Yeah.
Any more thoughts on Cal Baptist before we talk about St. Martin's?
No, I mean, I think Cal Baptist is a great team, and it would be a great test. I think that's the main word. It would be a great test and a chance for the Wildcats to kind of turn their season around into a better direction. Right. This is a chance for them to come out and to find opportunity to demonstrate their growth or demonstrate that they can still compete.
Yeah, Cal Baptist, a quality opponent. I mean, it's a good opponent to have on the schedule. I like it a lot, and so we'll just kind of see what happens. Next up, we'll talk about St. Martin Saints. They're going to come to the D on Saturday with a 7-1 record. They're a D2 team, though, and they hail from Lacey, Washington. Had to look up where that was. I looked up some of their stuff, and it was like, oh, okay, they play against like Central Washington. They play against Western Oregon, who the Wildcats saw in football. They will play against what is it? Simon Fraser, which is a Canadian team that plays against Americans sometimes, and so. That's kind of the competition that they usually face. Do you feel like this is a chance to kind of work on some things? Because obviously it's a D2 opponent coming in. They have a 7-1 record, but they haven't really played anybody. It's mostly they're just playing teams at the D2 level. They're just kind of, they've been staying in their own lane and they've been doing well. But it is a D2 opponent. And so do you think that this is a chance to work on some stuff, or you got to be careful because these are trap games and this could be a fight?
Yeah. Okay. So my personal opinion, let me put two different opinions, right?
Sure.
Y'all should never lose that game. In my mind, saying how I see ball and how I see the team and how they approach ball and how I know they approach ball and how Duff has been going. That should be a game where you're almost solidifying and really walking into yourself. Like I said, I think the CBU game, I think that's a good test. I think whatever comes from that, you build on that. Whether it's another lesson or whether it's a win, you build on the next game from that game. Right, because this team, they're a winning team, so they're used to winning, right? And they play to win, but at the same time, you should be expecting to win as well and approaching it as aggressively as you can.
Yeah, fair take. I mean, I agree with you that like win this game. That's not in doubt, right? You should win this game.
Yeah.
And so there's an opportunity for you to work on some stuff, but you do have to be careful that like, hey. They win at their level, and sometimes teams can punch above their weight.
Oh, a lot of times. So you shouldn't take it as a joke, right? But you should be expecting yourself to perform the best you can.
Yeah. And so we talked about the non-conference schedule coming up. Obviously, 5 games remain. 2 of them will come this week. There will be just 3 more after that. what do you think needs to be shored up in order to be competitive in the coming weeks? Or is it like, you know what, man, just like don't worry about what needs to get fixed, just let it play out? What's your outlook on the remaining non-conference schedule?
Oh, you should always be worrying about what needs to be fixed. You
All right.
always, saying that if you get complacent, I don't care what part of the season you're in. I don't care if it's the last game, right?
Sure.
Every game should be opportunity to thrive and be better. Um, and I would like because I think the Wildcats, especially in the guard position, are too talented to be shooting 25% from three at all, right?
Yeah, I
And
agree.
yeah, and I would love to see the percentages go up on on threes, and I'd love to see the defensive intensity maybe increase a little bit, right? Not just saying that it's bad, not saying that, but I think they can
Just
be so much capable of so much more,
yeah.
and that's just me being confident in you know who we have and the potential that they have. And those two things, I think they can compete with those two things. But rebounding, let's say rebounding would be a problem. It could be, not say it will be. It could be a problem. Rebounding could be a problem. Dale's doing his thing. He will always do his thing. But teams are bigger. I'm saying they have two good competitions coming up, BYU and um,
Utah
so
State.
in Utah State. So basically, rebounding would be huge. So, but mainly, I want the 3-point percentage to go up and just I want them to cause a little bit more turnovers, maybe, and make it competitive.
Yeah, I think you're right. If the 3-point percentage comes up a little bit, and I'm not saying it needs to go up to like 40%. I mean, if it bumps above 30%, if you get like 31, 32, 33%, I think that relieves a lot of pressure off of the system because teams have to respect that you can shoot the three now, that you're not just going to brick it all the time. Whereas like you see a team shooting 25%, you're like, I don't respect that. Whereas you're shooting 33, it's like, okay, we really got to do some work out here. And that's going to open up some things, I think. And so that should hopefully make a difference in the offense because now there'll be space inside to move and to pass and to do some things. So I agree. Like getting that 3-point percentage up a little bit. I think they're a talented enough team that they can get it there. It's just I don't know, the mountain air, I guess. A lot of these guys came from sea level, so they're getting used to 4,700 feet.
Right, it's getting tired. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think spacing's everything in basketball. Spacing's everything in basketball. The more
Yeah.
space you get, the more opportunities you can get. That's why Stephen Curry is so valuable, right? Because they
Yeah.
have to pay him half court. So I agree.
Yeah, man. All right, man. Any other things on St. Martin's before we move on to the next segment?
I don't know nothing else about them.
Yeah, show up, man. I mean, this is obviously, like we said, a D2 game, but I think an opportunity to have a good time. So go to the Palace, have a good time, enjoy it, man. Football's over, volleyball's over, so it's hoops now. Let's enjoy hoops.
Let's do it.
All right, man. Final segment. Like we said at the top, we're going to be breaking out Waldo's Magic 8 Ball early this season. First show of the young men's hoops season. And so I was going to give you an opportunity to ask the 8 Ball offensive question out of the gate. So Cam Davis, what's an offensive question you have for Waldo's Magic 8 Ball in this early season?
That's a good question. I would say that's too specific. Is it like it's like yes or no questions?
Yeah, yes or no is good. Like you're going to shake the 8
Um,
Ball. We're going to see what the 8 Ball says.
okay, okay. Um, is the Wildcats' biggest strength the paint, right? Or will they get more success from 3-point? Will they increase the 3-point percentage? Let me put it that way. Will they increase the 3-point percentage?
Okay. I mean, it's a great question and one we just talked about, right? The hope that it
Yeah.
would go up. So let's ask the 8 Ball, man. The Wildcats can increase that 3-point percentage and give themselves a chance to get a little bit better spacing. Shaking Waldo's Magic 8 Ball. The answer being reply hazy, try again. That's not the answer I want.
Facts. Come on, Waldo.
Like what? Okay. So we've had this problem with Waldo's Magic 8 Ball in the past where we busted out early in the season. And it was salty. It was kind of salty where it's giving us a lot of like, I don't really know, blah, blah, blah. And so I don't know, man. So reply hazy on the 3-point. I guess maybe we'll have to see how guys do in the gym in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
I think for me, my question is offensively. My question is, I really believe in off-ball movement. When we see an offense run effectively, it's because guys are moving and it makes it difficult for the defense to keep track of them. Thus far, we've seen a lot of just kind of hanging out, like guys are in their spot and they're trying to space the floor in their positions, but it's making it a little too easy on the defense. So my question to Waldo's Magic 8 Ball is, as the season goes on, are we going to see more of that off-ball movement to give defenses fits? So, shaking Waldo's Magic 8 Ball, the answer is, my reply is no. All right, you know what? I'm going to respect it because maybe that's not Coach Duff's strategy, and that's totally fine. That's what armchair Coach Colby is trying to do, trying to impose my will upon the Wildcats. The 8 Ball says, don't do it, man. Let Coach Duff cook.
Let him cook. And honestly, I think there's a possibility. You know, say, what if Waldo's wrong? Is he wrong?
Hey, what if Waldo's Magic 8 Ball's wrong? Hey, I like it.
Let's see.
All right, man. So let's flip the script down. Let's talk a little bit about a defensive question. What's your question about the Wildcat defense that you want to ask the 8 Ball?
Will the Wildcats' number of blocks go up?
Okay.
That's something I'm really interested in, is if they can get more blocks. It's a stat I feel like that would be really beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about, some of the issues with size in the front court. And so seeing guys get a little bit more aggressive defensively, like you said, increase that defensive intensity and get into guys a little bit earlier in the shot and maybe get some blocks. Let's ask the 8 Ball. We're going to see those blocks go up? Waldo's at Magic 8 Ball says, you can rely on it. I like it. They're going to get better. I like it. I think for me, defensive question is I'm worried about the rebounding, right? Like we talked about, the O boards so far this season have been a problem. We've been giving lots of teams lots of opportunities to put the ball back up, to just offensive rebounds are just second possessions, right? Try and take some of those away. And so my defensive question for Waldo's Magic 8 Ball is, are we going to see the rebounding get better so that the Wildcats have more possessions themselves, but take away extra possessions from the opposing team? Shaking Waldo's Magic 8 Ball. The answer coming through is no. Okay. All right. You know what I think it is? I think the 8 Ball just doesn't like me. I think that's what it is.
He's mad at you. Did you do something to him?
Pissed him off early, and now it's not going so well for me. Man, rough. So, all right. Final question here, man. I want to ask about the bench, because we talked about the bench production so far this season. It's been good. I think it's a young team, but there are lots of opportunities there. We talked about, in the last game, the contributions, 19 points off the bench. What's your bench question for Waldo's Magic 8 Ball?
Will the Wildcats cycle through more bigs off the bench, right? Okay. And test the limits with the freshmen and some other players.
Okay, we're going to see more front court action from the bench from this young core of players. Shaking Waldo's Magic 8 Ball. The answer coming through is you can rely on it. Okay. The 8 Ball likes Kham's questions, and and you know what? Maybe I should just let you ask all the questions, because I like the answers that you're getting. I don't like the answers that I'm getting.
That's funny. I think you must have made him mad for sure.
Did something wrong. Maybe it's old beef. Who knows? But all right. So my bench question is going to be, so I think that the starting guards are really, really good. The guys that we have are great. I like the guys that have transferred in. I think that they're really, really talented. But my question is behind them. Are we going to see some production? And are we going to see guys effectively handling the ball and finding opportunities to score? So will the guards coming off the bench be, I'm not saying they have to be as effective as starters, because they're not starters, but will they be more effective than maybe we've seen in the past? Shaking Waldo's Magic 8 Ball. The answer coming through is yeah. So great, man. The bench is going to be a strength for this team going forward. I like to see it, man. I just love to see it.
Yeah, and honestly, I can see that. I can already see it. So
yeah, I mean, KJ coming off the bench, I like it. Get the Hoop King out there. Let's go.
The Hoop King, my guy.
My guy, yeah. All right, man. So that's Waldo's Magic 8 Ball. Now let's take a look at the upcoming schedule. So like we said, Wednesday, December 7th, that's tomorrow, or, today, if you're listening to the show in the podcast feed, at Cal Baptist, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can watch it on ESPN Plus, or you can listen to the dulcet tones of Steve Klauke on 103.1 The Wave. Then Saturday, December 10th, St. Martin's comes to Ogden to face the Wildcats in the Purple Palace, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You get your tickets at WeberStateSports.com. watch it on ESPN Plus if you're like me and you're out of market. Cam as well, watching it out of market. So ESPN Plus is a thing, or listen to it on 103.1 The Wave. If you're out of market and you want to listen to it on 103.1 The Wave, they have a website. You can go to the website. I've listened to Steve Klauke here in Nashville. It's great. You can just get it through the internet. It's awesome. So even though you're not near the radio station, if you're out of market and you want to, you can. Then next week, a little bit of a break. Next game won't be until Friday, December 16th. Wildcats take the trip down to SLO, San Luis Obispo, to take on Cal Poly, Dyson Kohler's former team. 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, ESPN Plus, or 103.1 The Wave on that one. I think they got a new head coach this year. I think I remember seeing that. I could be wrong, but if they do, could be an interesting game. Then Monday, December 19th, this is where things start to get a little bit real. This is a tough week. 2 road trips, in-state road trips for the Wildcats. The first of those, Monday, December 19th, taking the trip up to Logan to face Utah State at the Smith Spectrum, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Tickets at UtahStateAggies.com if you want to go up to the game. Or you can go to Mountain. You can watch the game on Mountain West Network or 103.1 The Wave. Then Thursday, December 22nd, right before Christmas, at BYU, the Wildcats take the trip down to Provo, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for that one. Tickets at byu.edu. You can also watch that game on BYU TV or 103.1 The Wave. Then Christmas break, and then you should join me Thursday, December 29th. Wildcats face Northern Colorado to open conference play. Yours truly will be in the Purple Palace, so come hang out with me. Come sit by me. Let's talk Wildcat hoops. Tickets at WeaverStateSports.com. You can watch it on ESPN Plus, which I won't be doing because I'm going to be in the Palace. And you can listen to it on 103.1 The Wave. Cam, that's it, man. I want to thank you so much for taking some time. I'll wrap up the show like I usually do. Email us, WeaverStateWeekly@gmail.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Patreon, and the blog. Cam Davis, appreciate you, man. Hope to have you back on this season. Really appreciated your insights tonight, man.
Oh, man, thank you for having me, and I'll be back whenever you want me, man. I appreciate it.
Like we said at the top, Cam's working on his videography business, and so if you're interested, you need some video work done, reach out to him, man. Hit up Cam. What's the best way to reach you, man? You like folks to reach you on social media, Twitter, Instagram? What's the best way to get to you if folks are interested in hiring your services or checking out your sizzle reel?
Instagram right now, and it's Cameron_Davis, which is the Instagram, or I have a business email, Divinus Media. And Divinus is spelled Divinus Media. So Divinus Media. So it's Cameron@divinusmedia.com.
Nice. And by the way, Cam's name is Kham, so don't mess that up.
Yeah,
it's my guy. But if you're looking for video services, hit Cam up, check him out, support a fellow Wildcat, man. Cam, I want to thank you so much. I'll wrap the show up like we always do. Weber State, great, great, great.